Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a while since we made a Tierlist in the Honkai Star Rail, and we know just how quick things move in this game, especially between 3.2 and 3.4. The last time we made this Tierlist was in 3.2 when it was Annex and Castrus's release, but now that we're in 3.4, we got 3 new DPSs in Finon, Archer, as well as Saber. We got Hyacinth for the likes of Castrus and Mighty. We got Cypher for the likes of Acheron, and just a lot of other characters. So yeah, there's been quite a few changes, and of course we have also had the character buffs to both Blade as well as Jingliu. We won't be covering Kafka or Silver because Kafka's become more of a buffer nowadays, but when Hyacinth comes out, she will probably get placed somewhere in the tier list. I will make an update in 3.5 because Savage is looking to be an interesting buffer, as well as Hyacinth's potentially a good dot unit. Didn't hear it from me first, folks, but yeah, we'll see what happens. But today we're here for the here and the now 3.4. Where are these characters right now? As you can see, this is the 3.2 tier list, and there are quite a few changes which could be made. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. Now, real quick, this is, like I said, a free-to-play tier list. I don't want to punish characters too hard for not being super free-to-play friendly, but, I might keep them from going up in the top tiers if they're too unfriendly, and some of them might even go down a tier if there's some factors I consider unfriendly. You guys will see what I mean by my criteria as we move along. But real quick, if you want to pull any characters in version 3.4, then I have the perfect thing for you, and that's today's sponsor, lootbot.gg. You can use Lootbot to top up on your favorite games like Honkai Star Rail or Genshin Impact and save up to 25% on your purchases. Lootbot leverages favorable exchange rates and uses Hoyoverse partner ads so you can get the most affordable prices and enjoy all Hoyoverse top-up bonuses. Transactions on Lootbot are simple, safe and secure, as you only need to enter your UID and your region in order to get fast delivery. For example, if I want to buy the 3,280 generic shards and receive double with the first time top-up bonus, all I have to do is enter my UID as well as my server, and then if I go to top up now, they typically arrive in less than a minute. And creators like Raiden Shotgun, To That Time, and Mordex Tryhard are all also collaborating with Lootbot, so they are trustworthy, and they also have some very good reviews on Trustpilot, and I just use them myself so I can vouch for the authenticity, speed, and security. New users can also get an extra 10% off, so be sure to check out Lootbar with the link in the description. Thank you to Lootbar, and back to the video. Alright, well then, where do we start now? Because there have, of course, been quite a few changes. I think I want to take a look at the A tier and below, starting off with our 2 buffed units. First of all, that being Jingliu. I mean, Jingliu just got some pretty damn nice buffs. I mean, the HP scaling is nice, synergizes really well with units like Hyacinth. And although that changes some of the light cones you use on her, Secret Vow as well as the Ninja Record light cone are pretty damn good as well. I mean, the crit damage increase, you can just hit some absolutely insane crit rate, crit damage splits thanks to her brand new buffs. And then also her uptime is incredible, so you don't lose as... I mean, it's still possible to lose it, although, it's not gonna happen that often unless you get really bad RNG or because of some cringe boss mechanics. So I do actually think she feels, first of all, good to play now, because I remember, like, before she got her buffs, there was a time when I had my enhanced state, then eventually it spawned in his dices, and then as soon as I beat the dices and I was in the DPS phase, I was no longer in my enhanced state, and it drove me crazy. So I am very glad with the changes that they made. The one thing holding her back from being an A tier is just her team comp. I mean, Sunday, Tribi, and Hyacinth, not only are those 3 5-stars, which I wouldn't normally penalize someone for, it's just they're 3 of the 5-stars, which basically everyone else in the game wants. I mean, if you want to play Mighty, or if you want to play a hyper carry Saber, Anexa, Finon, then you do want to run Sunday with them. If you want to run someone like Castrus, Hertha, Maide, they also really like Tribi. And then, to be fair, any unit in the game likes Tribi, all of them can use her. And then also Hyacinth is slightly, I wouldn't call her necessarily a niche support, but she's slightly more niche than those two. But even then, if you have a Castrus or a Mighty, then you do want to actually, play Hyacinth with her, especially Castrus. So I do feel like that's holding her back slightly, but even then I think B tier is still a solid place, good in MOC, and Epoch Shadow wouldn't use her in Pure Fiction. But now who I would actually place slightly above her is good old Bladey, for a couple of reasons. First of all, I feel like Blade is just as good, if not sometimes better, in MOC and Apex Shadow, depending on which game mode you're in. He's also pretty decent in Pure Fiction, especially with the changes to his taunt value. So now that he gets hit more often, he can actually get more follow-up attacks, which of course is an AoE hit, which is very nice in Pure Fiction. Also, you can play him dual DPS, even if you don't, he's still very good at hyper carry after his buffs. I mean, just his pure HP multipliers made him just deal a decent bit more damage, and then also some quality of life changes just made him deal more damage overall. So 300k is finally reachable for him. Also some nice changes to the ult as well when it comes to the HP loss mechanics. So yeah, I mean, Blade just feels really good to play. He actually does decent damage now. Again, he does suffer from the Sunday Tribune Hyacinth team core. Literally the exact same team as Jingliu, so you can't even run them on the separate sides if you want them to be at full performance. But one thing which solidifies his place above Jingliu for me is that you can literally get his E0 from losing a 50-50. You don't even need to pull him. Is it a reliable way? No, but is it possible? Yes, and probably in another anniversary he'll probably get added to the pool of characters you can buy with the currency, because if you can buy the standard characters, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to buy Blade. And then also, what's really important is if you already have a Blade, then also you might also get an E1 Blade from losing a 50-50, and E1 Blade actually got insane buffs to the point where I actually think an E1 Blade might even be worthy of S tier discussion in his best installed team. Now, of course, some might argue that his premium team is an argument to not put him in the S tier, but because you can run him dual DPS with Castrus as well, I do actually think E1 Blade is capable of being in the S tier, but because not everyone's gonna have an E1 Blade, I do on my ult account, but I don't on my main account, which is really upsetting me, then unfortunately I am gonna have to keep him in the A tier as opposed to the S tier. But basically in any content he's doing pretty damn good nowadays. He's still decent without Hyacinth, you know, just get him Sunday Tribute and he'll be good, but he does prefer to have Hyacinth as well. It will help the team DPS quite a bit. But now then, let's go ahead and look at some of these other units. And I mean, there hasn't really been changes to Zila. I mean, you can get her E1, I guess. You can get her E2. Don't think that changes much. Dr. Ratio hasn't received many changes. Dill, you know, of 5 characters, 3 will be getting a buff. You are not one of them, Dunhung. Unfortunate. Of 7, hopefully next time. Clara, I just feel like there's so many decent physical units nowadays that, although you can still run her and she will give you decent results, I just feel like there's better options to invest into. Argenti could go up into the B tier. You know, physical's doing okay nowadays. You can use him sometimes in Apex Shadow if there's like a big buff for him. Although I don't think he's going to be your best installed option. Again, to be fair, once again, there's just so many physical options. I don't think I want to put him above C tier. I also just feel like there's so many. He's supposed to be a pure fiction specialist, but I feel like there's so many units which aren't pure fiction specialists but still outperform him. You know, someone like Castrus, I think will do a bit better than Argenti. Even certain Akron teams will do better than Argenti. So I do think I will be keeping him in the C tier after a bit of thought. Now the B tier, this is interesting. I actually feel like Jingliu is a jack of all trades but a master of none right now. If you ask me what's Jingliu's specialty, I could not tell you. Again, does kind of rely on Sunday, and I do think there are better units. I'd rather give Sunday to someone like my Jingliu or my Blade. So although Jingliu gets a million buffs, I do feel like he's back in the C tier. Still solid, but I do feel like there are better options, and then we also have quite a few good Electro DPSs nowadays as well. Then B tier, I'm happy with this. Now the thing is, I do actually want to move someone, at least one person down from the A tier, and that's gonna be Firefly. I just feel like it's kind of unlucky. I don't see as much fire weakness right now. If she had like a blast or fire AoE implant, then she'd be better, and then she could enable Link Shot a bit better. So I do feel like Firefly has been a bit of a victim of circumstance. Like I said, just not quite as much fire weaknesses in the past, and then enemy design also doesn't help, I think. Real quick, because I do want to touch on Super Rake as a whole, I will be moving Rapid down to the A tier, although I do still think she is in a better spot than Firefly and Beetle right now. I mean, if you think about it, bosses like the True Sting or the Banana boss, you know, that big robot one, I do feel like those actually favor her decently. Then enemies like Flame Reaver and Nikador, stuff like that, aren't as favorable, but I do feel like she does still have a few better matchups than the likes of Beetle as well as Firefly do. Also, Super Break used to be like the free-to-play friendly team, because, you know, HMC was free and then you just use Gallagher. Nowadays, you do, because Super Break has fallen off a bit and HP inflation, you do want to have Fugue and Link Shell, which does make it a bit more expensive. Now, of course, you can get an E0 or E1 Ron May if you do want to buy her from that store with the token we all got. Then, you know, it's still not super premium, but it's still decently premium that I don't want to place them any higher. You know, if we didn't get that free Ron May, I might actually even be placing them a bit lower, especially if we get a replacement for Ron May. Then Super Egg would, you know, it's not the most accessible right now, and I don't think it's that worth investing into, but the units themselves are still decent strength-wise. Jade is interesting. Jade is still a good unit for Herta. The issue is... Oh, and then she is also a pure fiction specialist, but there are... I just feel like Herta prefers to have a Nexa. You can even run Serval with Herta to decent effect, so I'm not sure just how worth it Jade is. You know, if you're struggling in pure fiction, then I do think she's worth it, but then other than that, I think it's fair to place her in the B tier. You know, I would rather have a Rapper, a Blade, a Face Shao than I would a Jade on my account. So yeah, I do feel like I will be putting her in the B tier, although I am close to putting her in the A tier, and I definitely do see the argument for it. So, you know, Jade mains, don't hate me. This is just for the time being. And then we get into the top tiers of the game. Now, before we add in Finon as well as the Fate units, I do want to say I feel like at least one of these guys has to go down to make a bit of space. And as much as I love him, I do think it's going to have to be Mighty right now. You know what? An Nexa is going down as well. I think although a Nexa is a pretty good dual DPS with Herta, I don't know why. Honestly, I'm slightly disappointed with a Nexa's damage numbers in Herta's teams. You know, if they're all E0S0, I don't actually think Nexa's numbers are that insane in the Herta team to make him that much better than someone like Jade or Serval. I just feel like the weakness break is useful. And then his hypercarry teams are solid as well. I don't think they're quite at the top tier, although they're still pretty damn good. So, you know, I do see if a Nexa were to get a support he synergizes with really well in the future, he could maybe go up to the SS tier and maybe even replace the Herta there. But for the time being, whilst we still get the AoE enemies like the True Sting and the Banana Boss, I will be keeping Herta in the SS tier. But honestly, by the time the next by the time the next tier list comes out, I do actually see this potentially happening. But for the time being, I do want to move both of these guys down. I actually think that Mighty is better in dual DPS than a Nexa is right now, and then in hypercarry they're comparable. Of course, the issue is though that Mighty does basically want the same supports as casters, which is why quite often I actually just run the two of them together. You know, in a dual DPS team, both of these guys' personal DPS does go down a bit, but then the team DPS overall stays similar. And then it does also free up someone like an RMC or a Sunday to go to your other half whilst you keep Trippy on that half. So yeah, I am actually decently happy with this. Oh, also, Akron, I don't know how I didn't spot this. You also need to go down to the A tier. That's kind of why I also wanted to move Jade down, because I don't think that... you know, I feel like there might be a bit too many A tier units. I'm more happy with there being 5 B tier units than there being 5 A tier units. You know, of course, Silverwolf did get buffed, so you know you can. Akron does have a few team options now with E0S0. You have Cypher plus Silverwolf, Silverwolf plus Jiaoqiu, Jiaoqiu plus Cypher, which are all pretty decent team comps. They'll do decent in all 3 endgame modes, just not fantastic in any of them. Which is why, you know, she is also kind of a jack of all trades, master of none right now, similar to Jingliu, but just to a better level. So I will still be putting her in the A tier, although, you know, if you do want her to perform at that top level, you definitely do want to pick up her S1, although even at E0S0 she will get the job done. You will just need a slightly stronger second half. But on the bright side, her best in slot teammates don't really overlap with anyone else. And then also to touch on Fei Xiao real quick, you know, she did get Cypher, who is a pretty decent third slot for her, other than Robin as well as your sustainer. I don't think it's enough to make her go up, but I do definitely think it keeps her from going down. Even without Cypher, I wouldn't have put her down, but I do think this solidifies her to stay in A tier. You know, I wouldn't really argue for putting Fei Xiao down. Maybe if you want to argue that Hunt isn't doing as well right now, which you wouldn't be wrong, but at the same time she still does pretty damn well in Apex Shadow, and she's still decent in Memory of Chaos. But that, of course, now does bring us onto some of the brand new units, starting off with Finon. Now, Finon is actually a pretty interesting case. I know some people disappointed slightly by his pure fiction performance. In Memory of Chaos at E0S0, I personally, at the beginning, was a bit disappointed in him, because when I ran him sustainless, he just didn't kill stuff fast enough in order to me be able to run sustainless, because then I would just end up dying, which honestly did not feel great whatsoever. And also this Memory of Chaos just does a lot of damage. It's actually kind of insane. I don't know what the heck the enemies are smoking, but it does feel like they can kill your allies real quick. So I actually run a sustain Finon, and Finon running Sunday and E2 Bronya, E2S1 Bronya, as well as Aventrine, actually still cleared in, it was 3 cycles, I'm pretty sure, which for a unit which likes being run sustainless is pretty damn insane. And then in Apex Shadow, he just absolutely destroyed it. So, you know, for being insane in Apex Shadow, really good in MOC, even if you can't run sustainless. If you can run sustainless, then he's also just as busted as he is in Apex Shadow. And then being decent in Pure Fiction, I definitely do think that does warrant the SS tier, even though I know some people were slightly disappointed in him. I was a 2 first. But I do feel like, you know, if we were to get another best in slot support for him, that would definitely solidify himself in the SS tier. And then real quick, before you talk about the potential future of units like Finon, Herta, and Anexa, I do want to touch on the Fate Collab characters real quick. Now, I did see that Proudwin did put Archer in the SS tier, and although he is a free character, I just did post a whole video recently on why I myself am slightly disappointed in him, and he is just really reliant on Sparkle, which, you know, even with Sparkle, I'm not sure I'm convinced of him being a tier 0 unit. It is nice that you can pick up his light cone. That is brownie points for him. I don't think that's actually greedy. I actually think that's decently friendly for the consumer. Even if, you know, that's just my personal opinion, though I know everyone has their own. The problem is, like I said, of course, since I did an entire video touching on it, I don't want to spend too long. But if you don't have Sunday, he just has such big SP issues. First of all, you launch less skills, which first of all means less damage because the big hits are on the 4th and the 5th skill. And then you rarely get the 4th, let alone the 5th. You are probably getting between 3, max 4 if you don't have Sparkle, which also, because you're launching less skills, he gets less energy, which means less ults. Of course, his ult is a big hit, which means less damage, and then his ult is also an SP generator, which means your entire SP generation in a rotation is worse. And then also, it means you have less SP to use on your teammates to refresh buffs, for example, Silverwolf's ult-type res pen. So you do actually really want Cypher if you don't have Sparkle, otherwise he feels pretty bad to play. And then also for your Sustainer, if you're ever in a pinch where you want to heal, you either have to decide, do I just not use the skill point so I can do more damage on my Archer and get my ult back quicker, or do I just heal and waste a bit of Archer's damage? So yeah, he definitely does have quite a few issues with Sparkle. Without Sparkle, honestly, he feels like an A-tier character. But with Sparkle, I would say he's still decently in the SS tier. In the S tier. I'm not quite sure he reaches the SS tier for me. Personally, I also, once again, although Hunt isn't doing as horribly as it was at the start of the version, I still don't think it's in the best place right now. So I will be putting him in the S tier. And then Saber, she doesn't have as strict team comps as Archer. I feel like her seeding isn't quite as high as Archer's, but I do think her floor is decently higher. Also, she does use more generic supports than Archer does. You know, you can get away with like a Bronya Robin just as you would an Nexa. I do actually think Saber and the Nexa are decently close right now in potential. I actually just think that Saber's kit is pretty damn fun as well. She does decently like Hua Hua, although she's not a necessity. So, although she does have a best on slot team which is decently premium with Sunday, Hua Hua, Robin, I don't think you need to run them. I think as long as you have one, at least one, but preferably 2, that she does perform pretty damn well and can outperform a lot of the units below her, as well as some of them in her tier. Like I said, I don't think she's competing with these guys, but she is solidly in the S tier, so I'm actually pretty damn happy with Saber. Of course, Archer is free, so I am happy with that. I just wish he was a bit more universal so that more people could have fun with him. So yeah, that's basically it for my tier list. Let me know what you guys think. When it comes to potential changes I could see, like I said, I do actually see, if we get a support which synergizes well with the likes of Finon and Nexa, I do actually see something like this happening, because I do feel like slowly we are getting less and less AoE right now. But then who's to see, I will probably do an update in 3.5, probably halfway through it rather than right at the beginning like I am right now for 3.4. But like I said, for the time being, this is our tier list. Also, I know I didn't say anything for Aglaya. I did not say anything for Aglaya. I just feel like she's in a really good spot right now, that she is, I don't think anyone could argue her being A tier. Although, you know, to be fair, actually no, I do see the argument for A tier, because I do feel like without Sunday, she really sucks when it comes to how it feels to playing her. But even then, you could use that argument against a lot of units. So I don't think, I don't want to punish her too harshly. Although I don't think she quite reaches the SS tier caliber for me quite yet. So yeah, like I said, that's it for my tier list. Let me know, what would you guys change? What are your thoughts on my list? What are your own personal lists? What do you see going up? What do you see going down? And also, what do you think about some of the recent additions as well as character buffs? But yeah, with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time. See ya.